What's it worth? What's it worth?
Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Total Innovation Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Simon Hill. Innovation inside a global industrial giant is very different from innovation inside, let's say, a startup. It's about operational complexity, long investment cycles, customer commitments often measured in decades, and thousands of people across terminals, vessels, logistics networks, and sustainability programs, all moving in synchronization. Now, layer into that challenge the idea of co-creation within a vast, complex ecosystem, not innovating in isolation, but building new capabilities with customers, partners, suppliers, and more. Trying to test them together, scale them together, sharing risk, sharing learning, sharing as much as we can. Today's guest sits at the center of those questions inside one of the world's most influential logistics organizations. She leads the global innovation ecosystem efforts across ocean, sustainability, and integrated logistics, helping connect customers, partners, and internal teams in ways that make innovation real, operational, and scalable. Sounds great, right? And with all that, I'm delighted to welcome to the show Sonia Ferreira. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Nice being here, and thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited to be here.
No, this is what I've been looking forward to. You and I met, I guess, sort of in less usual ways. I think sort of more online than in the real world. But maybe you can correct me on that. So yeah, I'm glad we've come together and we're going to have this discussion. Maybe you can start. I gave a kind of high-level introduction, as I'm prone to do in this, but start by introducing yourself and your role at Maersk, particularly focusing on how you got into this position and how you're trying to drive innovation within such a massive and established global logistics company.
Sure. So I have to say that the journey has been nothing but fulfilling and really rewarding over all the years that I've been in the group. So I've been in the group for more than 20 years. I've started in operations in what we call supply chain management and moved into many different sales roles within the organization. And then experience working with startups as part of our corporate venture capital Maersk growth. And so this is where I actually saw the need to drive innovation at a broader level within the different operation teams and commercial teams and across the broader organization. And so right now I'm leading the global innovation ecosystem as part of our product, one of our own products, which is leading supply chain management. We have other innovation teams also within the organization, but I also help them be in contact with the global innovation ecosystem and our innovation partners.
Great. I'm always interested in what the route is into innovation, right? There's no sort of natural, start in an early sales role and move your way all the way through into something else. The journey from sales is an interesting one, actually. And maybe we should talk a little bit more around whether that gives you a helpful perspective in some of the things that you're doing. Before we do though, so we're going to talk a little bit about co-creation and ecosystems a little bit. I'm going to talk a lot about it in this conversation. In that context, maybe you can just set the scene a little bit. Many organizations struggle to move beyond simply doing innovation to understanding its broader impact. And I understand at Maersk that innovation is closely linked to customer need and co-creation, right? We've discussed that. And I think this customer need piece is obviously critical. So how do you approach innovation through partnership with customers, with ecosystem? And what are some of the challenges that you see in doing that, particularly around sort of getting to impact, but maybe that's leading the witness a little bit more, and maybe it's from the early journeys of discovery work to as we said earlier, you're making long-term investments here. So like, what are some of the challenges? Just set the scene a little bit for us, and then we'll go a bit deeper.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest decisions that we've made over the last few years is that we really want to drive innovation together with our customers and making sure we meet their needs and also uncover some of their challenges that they're also facing with their own companies and their own consumers or other clients in the future. So we tackle a really broad, let's say, type of industries, right? So we work with other B2B industries like chemical or industrial, but we also work with B2C industries like retail, lifestyle, our FMCG clients. So the differences in challenges and the ways that their own innovation works for our clients is something that we've been paying a really big attention to in the last few years. And this is where like we really want to make sure with wherever we're building, if we're building together with our clients, and we have also their commitment that we will work together towards what we are bringing to the market, right? So it's not that they see us also only as a service provider, but also a partner where they can build some of this innovation. And sometimes we also feel that some of the innovation that is needed is so time consuming and resource consuming that no company can do it on their own. So if they will try to do it on their own, it will be super difficult. And if we also try to do it on our own, it's also very difficult. So because we have this cross-industry approach, and also with a lot of information and historic information and data that we can use to also understand what we should be focusing on, we try to make sure we leverage that to focus on the right things and bring innovation that is important for our clients.
How do you know what some of those right things are in terms of what you're focusing on? And as you said, and maybe you can just talk a little bit to the scale of Maersk. I'm sure people are somewhat familiar with the name, they've probably seen it in various places, but perhaps don't fully comprehend the scale. You know, I talked about it a little bit in terms of in my introduction, but it's a hugely complex arena that you're working in as well when we're thinking about innovation.
Yeah, so we are a 120 years old company that is present in 130 countries with 100,000 people. And we are present at terminals with also different transportation modes. So we have our own vessels, but we also operate with landside, what we call landside, which is inland haulage. We have customs, we have air, we have warehouses, we have e-commerce also. It's one of the latest products to be added to our portfolio for the last years. And we have also the area that I work, which is within the supply chain management, which is basically the technological layer that links all the different products together. So it's highly complex in terms of teams, but also in terms of cultures, because of course we have to operate at the very high level and efficient level to make sure we deliver for our clients wherever the cargo is coming from or wherever the cargo is going to, and also give them the right information at the time that they need it to make the best decisions.
So, I mean, there was lots of big numbers in all of that, right? The company's been around for a long time. It operates in a lot of different jurisdictions, and it has a lot of people. Before you even get into the multiplier effects of your supply chain, your customers at the other end of it. I mean, we're talking about, you know, millions and millions of people and the fabric of global commerce in many ways, right? The way that stuff moves around planet Earth is underpinned by all of it. How the hell do you do innovation in that context? You've talked about this approach in partnering with it, but you know, many are struggling to innovate in a far less complex setting than that. So how do you build a true innovation ecosystem? How do you even know where to start?
Yes, I think we try to make sure we stay as close to our customers as possible, and we understand where they're what they're going through and where they're heading in terms of their own struggles or innovation, let's say, challenges. So we think that's very important. We also stay very close to the market and try to understand what is happening, for example, with all this geopolitical uncertainty, and what does that mean in terms of some of the things that we feel that are needed for our customers that maybe were not so needed before. So also we feel there's a lot of disruption from what's happening across the different supply chain from the what we call the fragmented data sets, because there's information that only sits within parts of let's say, the bigger pool of data, and then how you link it all together. So if you, for example, think about something, what we call, for example, a stock keeping unit of a t-shirt, right? Or of a jacket or a shoe. What are the different components where that comes from, with the different raw materials then that needs to come from? So then it's produced somewhere, but then it's shipped from one location to 20 others or 30 others, with many different components of part of the transportation part that can go wrong. And so managing that complexity is something that our clients, of course, have been doing for quite some time, but the challenges are new, and then we try to make sure we understand those challenges and come back with solutions as much as possible. But I think one of the biggest transformation that we also see is the technological side of it recently with AI. Trying to uncover some of the decisions that are being made in supply chain, and how we can also use that to bring our clients more certainty or reliability in some of the decisions they make, or postpone some of the decisions. Because in supply chain, because you're always trying to predict what the final consumer or what the market will need, sometimes what you're trying to decide may be the wrong decision, because you're trying to make that decision 30 days in advance, or sometimes even more, 6 months in advance. So the later you can make the decision, the better the decision will be. And so this is also some of the things that we try to uncover. And we also learn a lot from different innovation partners that we work with that of course, going through the same journey as we are.
Huge amounts of complexity. And you said many times, sort of listening to customer needs. You talk a little bit about how you get to those again, and how do you deal with the signal to noise challenge that many of us have, but you must have coming from all different directions in everyday life, I would have thought.
Yes. So we stay really close to our colleagues that are in the front line, talking to our clients on a day-to-day. So the commercial teams, the customer experience teams, and other teams that talk to clients on a frequent basis. We also gather a lot of information from our regular meetings that we have, that from the account teams that manage different accounts, and they come back with some of the information of things that are not working or things that the client is needing. So a lot of them is structured through this constant flow of information that we have with some of or most of our clients. Some of it also we are doing it in a different way right now. We're also engaging with clients directly just on innovation. So some of them through different events that we attend that are innovation specific events, and our clients are also there with their innovation team. So we have conversations around innovation together in these events. We also have a recent structure where we deal with some clients directly just to discuss innovation in a broader way, where we go through ideation process with them. So we try to understand what they would like to focus on the future of some of the struggles that they have. We also share some of the ongoing initiatives or projects that we are doing as in terms of pilots or proof of concepts. And then we co-create together. So we decide to launch a new proof of concept for something that they have brought up, or then they decide they may want to enroll in some of the things that we are already discussing and testing. And so this is how we prepare our different innovation portfolio together with our clients and manage some of the ideas that we are currently testing.
I know that you and I have spoken about the topic of measuring and demonstrating impact. This feels like it's a particularly complex one for you guys, with so many different stakeholders, and potentially the impacts lying elsewhere in the value chain of the work that you're doing. So when you've got such a complex setting, when you've got long-term investment cycles involved as well, I guess, how do you think about measurement? And also, how does the company, so much you can talk about this, think about innovation as a longer term strategic bet than perhaps you would see? It feels like it's absolutely essential in a business like this, perhaps less so where you've got such big long-term CapEx investments happening alongside other investments as well. What can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we normally try to, when we measure innovation, we always try to measure based on, again, like coming from customers' feedback and what do they really need and what they verbalize and tell us that they really need in terms of drive for innovation, from a technology perspective, or features or capabilities that they tell us that the market already has, and we should also focus on. So it always comes from, or most of the times comes from the client's ask and specific requirement, and at the same time, it also we also trying to measure in a way that it brings us back to not only the size of the market or size of the opportunity, or size of the innovation and the impact of that innovation in the market, but the urgency of that innovation. And this is where, like, reading your book was super interesting to also uncover some of how we can track and measure all these different parts of the variables that make a difference in getting a final, let's say, number that allows us to compare some of the initiatives and innovations that we're working on against each other, because some of them are so different, right? So we, of course, we compare within our own scope, within the supply chain management scope, but there's other initiatives that are happening, especially with investments and others. So I think that it is really important that we have something that support us in making better decisions as we move along, especially with this need for speed that we feel from the market now. So, and this is something that I feel sometimes it is difficult to make decisions fast, because this, to your point, there's so many stakeholders that need to be involved and decide on that decision. So, yeah, so we need to continue to take steps to decide better and faster.
Work in progress, and thank you for the feedback on the book. I know something that you guys are digging into and exploring, and I appreciate that massively. Thank you. I want to dig a little bit more into some of the specifics. Right, we've spoken about your role within the supply chain management innovation ecosystem, or and I guess kind of open innovation ecosystem, maybe as well, if I may. The term ecosystem is often used. I think we're going to see it even more often used. Hopefully, not to the point where it gets so abused that people don't use it anymore, because I think it's going to be super important. I saw a stat recently from, I think, McKinsey, that as much as 30% of all global money will pass through ecosystems by the end of this decade, which I couldn't figure out. I thought was small or big, but whatever way, it's a very big number, right? It also made me think a little bit about how much still doesn't, right? There's a lot of very local money still moving around in a variety of different ways. But even that makes you think, well, what the hell is this ecosystem, right? And what does it mean, right? That an ecosystem is designed to be symbiotic, right? What does that mean in a large corporation setting, right? Like, is there true symbiosis possible? And maybe you can give some concrete examples in your explanation of this, of what it really means, even, right? Like, it's, there's the description's good, the pain point is complex and well articulated, but what does it mean? What does the day-to-day look like? What are you doing? And the more tangible you can be, the better. And what is an ecosystem in your world?
Yeah, so I think ecosystem can mean different things. So for us, we actually see it both internally and externally. So externally, we do work with the innovation partners for some time. So either through our CVC arm, Maersk Growth, that with other VCs or CVCs, for example, and startups. We have other innovation teams that also work with other startups or incubators, accelerator programs. So we've been doing it for some time. We also work with academia, leading academia in different locations, US, Europe, Asia, trying to learn what they're doing, and also a lot of the information that they're putting out there in terms of the market. But I feel that the ecosystem, let's say, meaning it has to be both ways, right? So it's not only what we get out of it, but also what our partners get out of it, and how we can learn together. So it is symbiotic in this co-learning, let's say, mindset. And in that sense, I think that our customers are also part of the ecosystem. So because not only they help us co-create and ideate, we ideate together, but because we're also very much in touch with their own innovation teams, which are also going through their own challenges or different opportunities. And they also have their own ecosystems with their own startups and other partners and suppliers. So it's almost like we learn together in terms of not only what we should be doing, but how we should be doing. And I think this is one of the most exciting parts. And internally, it's also very important because we are a massive organization, as you mentioned, and because we are very B2B focused, we are very, of course, execution focused, and we need to perform and deliver at a very high level every day for our clients. And so innovation is not front of mind for a lot of our colleagues across the organization, right? Because of course there's other things that they also need to focus on. So we really want to make sure we bring our colleagues along and make sure they also feel empowered and part of the innovation journey, and that they can feel that they have a voice and they can participate and be part of some of these conversations and feel that they also created new solutions and new products together with us, right? So it's a continuous journey, but we feel that we're also taking the right steps to drive this internal and external ecosystem together. In terms of some examples, so I think, which is not within exactly our the scope that I work with, but for example, one of the good examples of Maersk bringing innovation to market through a ecosystem is this new Gemini network that we've designed and we launched recently, which we completely transformed how the industry operates in terms of ocean transportation. And we created this network of different hubs that we've been creating and investing for a real long time to make sure we can bring the reliability of the ocean transportation to above 90%, which was what it was in the past. But after COVID, in general, it was reduced to like 60%, and this was the industry average. And now we've completely redesigned the way that we work as a company from the ocean perspective and brought something to the market that is completely different than any other player. So it takes a really long time, and of course you have to have the vision to see how you can do differently, and of course then the time and resources to put it together and launch it. But it's a very successful launch for some of the things that my ocean colleagues have been working on.
Amazing, and it's always nice to hear some impactful stories. There's a few things I just want to pull on in the answer you gave, and a little bit from something earlier as well. I'm going to start with this question around AI, and it's everywhere at the moment in terms of topic of conversation. I'm not sure I had a strong opinion on whether I thought AI would, obviously massive. I mean, there's lots of areas of your business I can imagine it would be hugely transformational for. And in many discussions with people, there's also vast areas that perhaps it won't really have much impact in at all. How are you as a, maybe you can talk about it in your role rather than me asking you to speak on behalf of the whole company, but how are you thinking about AI? And how would you say, if you look back, I don't know, a couple of years, you said you've been in and around the business for 20. Does it change the lens of innovation within the context that we're working, within the sort of sense of the paradigm shift that it feels like it has from a discourse level, actually at a sort of practical level in the business?
Yes, so I think the biggest difference is speed. So the speed with AI in terms of either getting to a conclusion on something, for example, on data, having to assess or extract information from data, now it's extremely fast, right? So we may say that we're not sure it's 100% correct all the time, but it is extremely fast to extrapolate trends or analytics in general, or things that we should look into, for example, when we analyze big sets of data. Another thing is the velocity that you can build things or at least test things. So I think in the past there was a lot of time that had to be considered for testing and building. And I think now what we see from a lot of from internal teams, but also innovation partners that we work with, is that something can be built really fast because of the different AI involved in those products. So the decision can be made faster. Of course, again, to our previous discussion, it doesn't mean that the mechanisms for making decisions allow them to be made faster, right? Because there's still a lot of confidentiality concerns, privacy issues, data usage, of course, regulatory concerns and legal concerns. But at the same time, the possibilities are there. It's just to understand like how companies can actually change the way they work to make the best use of it, right? And I think it also brings like it almost democratizes a lot of access to innovation because it will give you access to things that maybe you didn't know before. I remember being in this event and there was a speaker there and he was saying that his daughter wanted to build an app and he helped her build an app. And then he incentivizes all to build apps using a specific tool that I won't mention here. And it's actually, I've tried it and it works. It's like, it's almost like you see the output of what you had in your mind, while in the past you couldn't actually do it. You have to hire somebody to do it on your behalf, and then you didn't know how it worked, right? So now everybody, one of us can actually do it. And there's a lot of companies that are being built on these like open source tools. So like it also democratizes how much you can build your own company and use all these open source tools to launch and scale and bring value to market in a very different way that we will do in the past. So it means that competition can be also bigger and larger.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, it feels like there have been huge moats of defensibility around the business for a very long time. Many of those the big numbers of years that the business has been around. Does it feel like that there's a bit more vulnerability in certain parts of the organization as a consequence of this, or are those big moats still mostly there, in your opinion?
No, I would say yes. I think that it is important that we understand that there's a lot of new incumbents, new entries to the market that we would not expect, because it's much easier for us to be disrupted by, of course, companies that build something which is sometimes like specifically niche, but it really resonates with customers or really brings something that it hasn't been tested or we haven't been able to crack before. So it's not only for us, it's for all the traditional players in the industry, I would say. Of course, we have to be very attentive to what's happening in the market with the newcomers, because they also bring a very fresh perspective in what they're doing and how they're doing things, right? But I think it's a good challenge to have. So I think it's good that when we see things that we haven't thought about, and that is why it really is. It's also part of the ecosystem benefits, right? So we engage with them afterwards and see how we can do something together.
Yeah, I like this positive outlook on it as well. It feels like it's an exciting time for the industry in many ways. You talked about fostering this culture where employees also have access and can innovate together. Sometimes, and I'm interested a little bit in your journey in this as well. The route into innovation, as we said, as a job inside the business is one thing, but this idea that we're trying to get everybody to innovate with and for us can sometimes feel quite daunting to people, right? Is innovation a dark art or not? And I'm curious how, I guess in two bits really, how do you go about making sure this feels like it's something that is accessible to people, and maybe there's a skills element to this, somewhat linked to the AI discussion we were just having as well. And I'm going to ask the other question alongside it, because I somewhat hesitate, because I think there's an element of building specialism and building general skills in all of this. But what was your journey in from not innovation to innovation in terms of, I guess, building your professional skills around innovation management?
Yeah, so I was just thinking if I would start with the first question.
Sorry, I'm good at asking big questions.
No, so I think what we try to identify internally, and I completely understand what you mean about being a little bit daunting for the different parts of the organization feel that they need to execute, perform, and deliver, but they also need to now be contributing with the ideas. So we open the floor, and we have different mechanisms for people to contribute. Of course, they don't have to contribute; it's not a mandatory feature. What we're trying to do is excite them to feel that they want to be part of it, and they can be part of it if they want to, right? But we're also selecting a few profiles with people that have the right experience and also access to also support us in driving innovation together with the local teams. So it's not only, let's say, a centralized effort, because we really want to make sure this is driven from the frontline colleagues as well, and they have sometimes different needs or different perception of what is a priority in regards to maybe what we may be focusing on. So we really try to not only give them access, but of course making sure that they know that we are available, but instilling the tools and the mechanism and the network within the local organizations that they know that they can have access to these ideation and co-creation methodologies and innovation workshops whenever they feel it's needed and whenever they feel it's relevant. On my own personal journey, so again, because I have started with operations and then sales, traveled extensively with clients from many different parts of the world, and I actually really saw how important it is for you to really go deep into the challenges and the problems and have an open mindset and trying to see what you can bring more than what you already have, right? So I think a lot of the innovation let's say drive came from this deep knowledge of what clients needed, and also given like the global reach of what we do, how sometimes one thing that worked in one location maybe didn't work in another location. So how important it is. Of course, we have a lot of standardization, but we also have things that we understand that need to be customized for specific locations, for example, in terms of offering or a way that we manage a specific product. So, and then I had some years ago an experience of working with a startup that became one of our clients. I think is one of the first clients that we had that was a startup, and the way that they work was really quite mind-blowing in the how fast they iterate and pivot and changed and make decisions. So I think this really opened the door for me in terms of understanding the big differences between the traditional corporate world and the startup world, and how important it is that they work together. So in this case, they were still a customer of ours, but then we tried to understand how we could actually collaborate in some of the solutions that we were looking into. And with that, I started working with startups much more in my personal time, and being a mentor and an expert with different incubator accelerator programs, and this is where like it all made sense for me, right? So when you actually see that you have the corporate perspective and experience, and how you can learn from how startups bring innovation to the market, and how fast they move and also change whenever something is needed, and how you can take those learnings inside to the corporate world, and also how you can help them talk to the corporate world, because eventually most of them want to sell, the ones that are in B2B, most of the startups want to sell to corporates eventually. So you're also trying to support them in seeing how corporates make decisions, and can facilitate some of their own growth and expansion journey. So, and with that, it's when I also, more or less at the same time that I moved to the CVC arm, I've also started working with other institutions like MIT Sandbox Innovation Fund, Stanford Seed, and now the European Innovation Council Scaling Club with deep tech scale-ups in Europe. So trying to bring some of my experience and my knowledge from the both worlds, working with both worlds to how we drive innovation at a broader scale, and trying to make my contribution to the innovation community.
So it's a constant learning journey that's built on a deep knowledge of what the client needs. I love that. I think that's a nice summary. Thank you. There's one term you used, and we're going to start wrapping this towards the close in a minute, I promise. There's one term you used in some of our prep discussion, which I don't think I'd heard before, but I quite liked. I think you said it as this concept of invisible innovation. I'm going to give it to you as one of yours, even if it's not, because I haven't heard it before, so you can have it as a Sonia term. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means, and why, I like the concept of it, but it comes with its own challenges to a degree, but I think it's a big reward mechanism somehow. So what is it? What is invisible innovation?
Yes. So I think what I meant with that was that, so a lot of logistics, it's almost invisible to the client, for the final consumer, for example, right? So what we do when somebody goes to a store and buys something, like there's so many things that happen in the background before that garment or that book or that whatever article you're buying got there, right? And so it's almost like we have this invisible, I sometimes say that we work in this invisible layer that nobody knows like exactly how things get somewhere. And whatever you're driving innovation, because it's whatever you're working on is invisible, the innovation is also invisible. So when you're a final consumer, you're not really sure if the car arrived earlier, or the production was facilitated because the raw materials were all on time, or because you can keep track of decisions and then the right product at the right place at the right time. So there's so many things that a lot of the people from the industry are aware, but the average consumer maybe is not aware because it's completely invisible. And even if you change a lot of things, they will still be invisible for the final consumer because they didn't know how they were before, or the impact. So this is where it is quite an interesting world to be part of, because you know what you're doing, but of course it is still quite invisible for a lot of people.
Nice.
But don't do it for the recognition, right? We do it because we know that we can.
No, exactly. That's even more profound, though, I think. All right, we're going to get on the bandwagon of Sonia's invisible innovation. I think this is it's a future book for you in this, I'm telling you. I'm going to close us with a question. Again, I didn't surprise you with many in this one, but you've been on a learning journey. You're on a learning journey. Many would love to imitate and mirror the types of successes that you're having. It seems like you've got a hugely supportive organization around you in terms of learning as well. You're not allowed to say my book. It's not a tee up for like pleasant, compliments here. But is there one? It can be a book, it can be a network, it can be an event. Is there something that you would say, look, if you're around the space, or if you're looking to sort of follow in my footsteps a little bit, this is my one area I would go to that will help you to move from, I don't know, 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 in terms of learning and accelerating some of that learning for people?
Yeah. So one of the early books that I read and that really changed my perspective on a few things was a book called Range. And it really shows like how different people from a very different part of the industry can incorporate and add value to another industry. So it's not like everybody should know only about their own thing, and the importance of expanding your knowledge and bringing and connecting the dots from different areas. Because I felt that I was already doing that, but at the time I didn't know exactly why I was following that path, but everything made sense for me, and I understood how it changed my perspective because I could connect the dots from many different areas. And this is also drove my approach to connecting the dots between corporate and the startup world, for example.
I love asking this question because I always discover books that I haven't read, even though I feel like I've read all of them. So thank you. I haven't read that book.
That's so interesting. And then more recently, I also have to express my let's say, admiration for one of the events that we've been participating in. It's very interesting. It's called Innovation Roundtable. It's where different corporate innovators meet and discuss innovation challenges and the future together. So we are a member, and we also get to learn a lot from these events.
I think getting like-minded people together and being able to talk
Exactly.
through these things,
Exactly.
just it's a mixture of learning and therapy in many ways. So thank you very much. If anybody listening wants to contact you, how do they best find you?
They can just reach out to me via LinkedIn, or then if they want to send me an email, it's my first and last name, and then at maersk.com.
All right, great. You're pretty active on LinkedIn. People can find you on there. You've got some great content as well. Sonia, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we finally made this happen between my logistics and life. I'm glad we finally got here. What stands out for me here is this discipline of linking the direct knowledge and deep knowledge of customer needs and the courage to co-create in these complex operational environments, still recognizing that it's complex, right? That we're dealing with the challenges of, as you said, decision intelligence and measuring uncertainty earlier. But it also feels like you've got a hugely supportive organization around you, right? And I'm sure that there's lots that we couldn't talk about and didn't talk about today that are still big challenges. But congratulations on what you've done and on this evolving journey of, trying to drive net new value into what is this invisible layer of innovation that we're working towards. As a deep lesson for organizations that are facing similar challenges in this ever accelerating world. Innovation at scale is not about theater. It's not even really about activity. I think it's about partnership. It's about operational integration. And, ultimately it's about long-term value creation. So thanks again for joining us, Sonia. We look forward to seeing how Maersk continues to shape the future of global logistics, or maybe not seeing if it's mostly invisible, through innovation led through ecosystems. For everybody, thank you again for listening. As always, please hit subscribe. Sonia is one of many interesting chats we've got this season, and obviously there's legacy seasons gone before as well. Until next time, thanks everybody. Keep innovating, and I'll see you soon.
What's it worth?